comedy has a much larger shelf life than just a regular old ad. It's going to be shared more. It's going to be liked more. Typically, we find that anything with comedy is going to work better than something that's not funny.
Right.
Wing It Podcast, goosedigital.com, episode 74. Who do we have?
Robin Kroll.
Mike Goitanich.
Amr Hisham.
Michael Turksani. Inverted Taco team. Welcome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
Long time coming.
Partners in some crime, in some video marketing crime that we've been working on together. Yeah. Great to have you in the studio. What do you guys think of the studio?
Love it.
Beautiful setup, man. Yeah. It feels nice and cozy. Yeah. It feels personal.
Toronto, Ontario.
Yeah.
Center of the universe.
It's a refreshing change. We were just talking about how impersonal Zoom calls are.
Yeah.
People talking over each other and just there's a lot of nuance that is missed.
There is.
Body language.
There is. I didn't know how tall you were. I thought you were actually quite short.
You know what?
We were taking over-under bets on the way up
I
here.
was talking to Mike on the way over.
And I'm probably the opposite. I'm super short. And you guys thought I was tall. Right.
I was like, imagine if we were talking about Chris too. I was like, does Chris strike you as a tall guy or is he super short? I was like, it's just going to be really interesting to find out.
Yeah.
But Chris isn't here today, so that's okay.
Chris is Robin.
No,
Yeah.
and you guys probably, I don't know, did you think I was short or tall? And then you find out?
No, I think you're just perfect, Robin.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
I love these guests, Mike.
Yeah. But you're right about that. It is impersonal looking at stuff over Zoom. And we're going to talk about video marketing, which how to make that more exciting than just a basic Zoom or a selfie. Remember when everybody was doing selfie videos?
They still do them.
They're still around. Yeah, there's a lot of user-generated content.
That's right.
Yeah, user-generated.
UGC.
Yeah. It stops you for a minute, and then you're like, I can't watch this. I'm going to scroll.
I think people are wising up to it now. You can kind of pick it out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a ton out there, but maybe we can give a brief intro about who we are.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so we're Inverted Taco. We started out 2018, multifaceted production company. We built a team of producers, writers, comedians, directors, editors, and animators. And our strategic approach to video sort of balances performance and branding to drive conversions. We take a data-first approach. So essentially, we consult with our clients, seek to build out basic marketing needs and questions like, who's this content for? What's it for? So do a little bit of persona development, and then we dive into the creative.
That's right, yeah. So our creative approach, really, there's a two-faceted approach. One of the things that we look at is a larger format video that would kind of dig into what the product or service is in a larger format. Mm-hmm. And then, the more of the niche specialty that we've developed over the last few years is really short-form blasts of content that we would use to essentially mine data and then iterate on what's working and why. Mm-hmm. So it is a data-driven approach, and we call it data-driven ads for human consumption. Mm-hmm. And with you guys, we cook up some Goose tacos every now and then and fire them out and see what people like and go from there.
Yeah, it's going pretty good. So what about the Inverted Taco name? Do we need to talk about that?
Sure,
I feel like we do.
I can take that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right.
I was living in California at the time. Eating a lot of tacos, as you do when you're living in.
Yeah, that was the taco. Kind of there was the renaissance for tacos there going on.
Totally, yeah, it's alive and well for sure. And we're thinking, what's a staple food that people eat all the time? Obviously, tacos was on my mind because the way we were looking at it is, video is a staple now. The ads of the golden age were billboards or print and things like that, and in the modern day, the billboards are now on your phones or on the internet. So a taco is a staple, something that everyone needs, every marketer needs. But how do we kind of flip the script on video? And instead of doing these massive productions where you're going to be running like hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to a national spot, how do we take that and take the same quality and shrink that down to something bite-sized, and really just flipping the script on video? And so that's where the inverted comes from. So the taco and then the inversion of the taco.
And they both, like with tacos and videos, it has to be the right ingredients, the right place, the right time. So serving the right content to the right audience right platform, right time.
Yep.
So you know, we've had a little bit of fun with the name. It's always a good icebreaker.
Sure.
Yeah,
To
it
start
totally
for
is.
sure.
Yeah, I could see a mascot one day, you know, when you guys are,
Oh, that'd be awesome.
you know, it's huge and
Big
you've got
taco.
like
A life-size taco.
big taco,
Big
exactly.
film taco.
Yeah, and he's walking around. Well, Robin knows a lot about data, right? Know a couple things.
Yeah,
The odd
a few things
little
about
thing
data.
about data. So yeah, our resident data and insights, you know.
Yeah, and
Guru.
you just think about, you know, everything about marketing today really needs to start about data. You know, this whole world of this untargeted, one-size-fits-all type of messaging, it just doesn't work. It doesn't resonate. So, you know, when we talk to our clients, and how do you start? You want to have, you know, deliver your value proposition, share your brand value, and you need to understand who's your audience, what information do you know about them, how do you leverage that so you can deliver these messages that really, really resonate. And then on you know, the backside is capturing data. Right. So understanding how they engage with your marketing, and then you add that into the data you're collecting. So you gradually get more and more personalized, more targeted, and more effective with your messaging. And I love the idea of how video incorporates all this data.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Mike was saying. A very important approach to video is for us scalable content or volume or iteration. And by iteration, I mean it's super important to have, you know, 5, 10, 15 videos. You have it integrated into your digital marketing strategy. So every quarter, after doing our basic due diligence, understanding, you know, answering those questions like who's this for, what's it for, learning about our audience. Once we serve them content, you don't get conversions right away, or you can't guarantee that it's going to work right away. But it is absolutely crucial to understand your audience better, learn more about how they behave, how they interact with your videos, and hence you can make informed business decisions down the line. We typically, you know, look at the video marketing funnel, which at the top starts with awareness and then moves into consideration and decision-making stages. So as a business owner, if you have your value prop down super tight, if you know what your main advantages are, why you're better than the competition, the idea is to take that and come up with content that is creative, that might make, you know, your audience laugh. Comedy is really good, and then produce at scale, and then test it and iterate.
Yeah. On that topic of comedy, I mean, we tend to work with a lot of comedians. We're plugged in with Second City, improv comedians, you know, sketch comedy. We find that if you can sell a value prop and also make your audience laugh at the same time, that's a huge win. That content's also way more shareable. People are going to like it more. Ultimately, it's just going to have a longer shelf life, because if you have people laughing and sharing and learning about your product, maybe not up front, but in the background, it's a really effective way to market.
So actually, I was going to jump in on this.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Because I was going to say that, like, part of what you guys were kind of all talking about was, you know, capturing that value proposition and then being, you know, testing it and then being able to scale that up and really knowing kind of your brand or your message that you believe will resonate with your customer. Why don't we actually go kind of to the starting point of, like, when somebody's interested in getting into some video marketing, and when they're now saying, you know, we want to go beyond our banner ads or our basic kind of, you know, display advertising type of stuff that, you know, we've been doing. We want to get some higher engagement on our content. You know, what's that process look like? Like, you know, what do you typically see as like a good process, and where do you see maybe some challenges for people to think about if they're going to be going into this next level, if you want to call it that, of marketing?
Right. That's a great question. And, you know, we understand the fact that a lot of folks are very self-conscious, or businesses are self-conscious about the kind of content they're putting out there. Or, you know, that the fact that when you put a lot of video out there, that that's representing the face of your brand. But in terms of the process, if you already have done, you know, the basic groundwork, and we understand everything we need about the audience, and you have tried you've played around with digital marketing a little bit, it is important to really narrow down your value props and, you know, try and match that to your audience. How do we engage with them? And then you have to test it. So in you know, our process and how we engage with our clients, that involves asking a set of questions, understanding the marketing needs, and then coming back with a series of scripts. So typically, let's say if our target audience, let's say, are mainly boomers, and we know that they live on YouTube, and we know that we need to tell a story as opposed to like a bite-sized clip, then you need a longer sort of 30-second asset or explainer video. But if we know that a lot of our target audience lives on, let's say, Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or Facebook, then you know that the attention span there is a lot shorter. Think of how much content we're over inundated with on a daily basis. Never before in human history have we had access to so much information. And it's so hard to stand out and to cut through the noise. So it's really important for the social content, like Mike was saying earlier, that it's 5 to 15 seconds. And that's why comedy is fantastic, because if you're a comedian, you can write a script or a slide where you make someone laugh in 3 to 5 seconds.
Yep.
Then you've got them, right?
Or something else that is standoutish that you can get into that 3 to 5 second kind of vein, right?
Exactly.
10 seconds.
Obviously it depends on the product or service. Like
Sure.
some products or services, there needs to be a more serious tone, but it has to be super engaging in that time. The call to action has to come in super quick. The title has to be great.
Right.
So there's a lot of moving parts there. That's where the sort of the iteration comes in handy, because starting out, you don't really know what's going to work, but you have to be brave.
Sure.
And you have to try out, a few different.
When we're working with our writers, one of the things that we always teach is we need to catch the attention span of the audience within 2 seconds. So if what we're writing isn't going to stop a scroll within 2 seconds, whether that's an evocative image, a sound, a line of dialogue, we might as well trash it, because like we need stuff that's going to immediately jump off the screen and stop people from scrolling and then engage the audience. So that's something that's
like a guideline that you guys
Totally.
use to sort of,
yeah.
And it's something we learned from testing, right? Like we've, with some of our clients, you find that 80% of people have disengaged after 6 or 7 seconds, and that it takes 2 to 3 seconds for them to decide whether they're going to continue watching or not. So the metrics really kind of guide us there.
Sure.
But we do know that video isn't a passing phase. We know that 85% of all internet traffic currently is video, and that's like a 5-fold increase on 2017.
Yeah, that trend's
I think
just going
that was
up.
like a HubSpot study that they did. So what this tells you is that like you as a business owner, if you haven't tried this yet, you have to. It's no longer sort of a luxury part of your marketing. It's not reserved for larger companies. I know that back in the day, like there wasn't access to great commercials was difficult because it was expensive, 6-month turnaround time, and it might not necessarily generate that return you're looking for.
Right.
However, today you can get quality content at an affordable rate, and it's scalable, and it's also and it should be an integral part of your marketing strategy, as opposed to something that, hey, maybe we'll get a nice video for our company. No, it has to be sort of a driving force behind your approach.
I love that strategic perspective, the way that both of you have just described this, because, I sort of think about back when, email was that essential tool, and suddenly we had a way of getting messages in front of all of our customers or prospective customers. And so brands, whether B2B or B2C, they just went ahead and they just blasted everybody, because they said we could just deliver any kind of message. And so now we know that actually that doesn't work anymore. You have to be really strategic about how, when, where, why you reach out to somebody, because there is that fatigue. So it sounds like we're being much smarter about video, knowing that in advance. And I think of, seeing all these brands who are actually using video, but they're not taking that strategic approach. You see it all over LinkedIn and Facebook. That user-generated content with just that video, somebody's just kind of thrown it in. It's not part of a strategy, thinking, I've got a video, and it's going to work. But it's not. It has to be part of that strategy.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, glad you brought that up, Robin, because one of the downsides to cost effectiveness of video is that when you bring a barrier to entry down in the way that we've seen with video over the last, let's say, a decade, you have a lot more people flooding that market, but not everyone necessarily knows how to use it to the best of their ability, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that
It's podcasting too, right? I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
another thing, that another kind of, so when you look at, it's part of the driver here, and I think we want to do more even with this, I mean, there's a video element to this podcast,
Yep.
but we talked at the beginning about getting off the Zoom podcast because
Yeah.
we had to keep running our podcast for a period of time, right? When we couldn't all be together. But the quality, and I think part of what you're saying is that, it's flooding the market and the quality is not there to your point, this user generated content, and it's not at the level. And I think part of that is maybe not understanding the costs have come down. You could step outside and get, like you said, a dozen videos done for a reasonable price and have a more strategic approach, and the quality is going to be much higher than you trying to do this in a haphazard kind of user generated way. They may not understand that that's a doable thing now, and then when you see it in the feed, to your point, it jumps out. It starts to differentiate. It's not the person walking down doing the selfie videos, but like, oh wow, that looks like serious production quality. I want to take a look at that. Oh, what's that company about? Oh, it's
I totally agree. Like it comes down to identifying what the marketing need is.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we creating this content? So in some cases, user generated content can be very successful, right? If you're going for micro influencers who are selling a specific product and they have an audience on TikTok or Instagram, and you have someone who has a following, just whips out a product. Hey guys, this is why I'm using this, and that can drive sales.
Sure.
But the idea here is that this doesn't mean that it's going to work for every product or service. You have to first whittle down, why are we creating this content? What's the marketing need? If I, for example, let's give an example. Like if I just have a website and my main marketing goal is to keep people on the page longer. I want to improve my SEO. I want to engage traffic that's already going there through a pay-per-click campaign to increase my return on investment there. So that's a specific type of video. If your product or service entails explaining what it is that you do and you need a bigger piece commercial,
right,
you come up with that.
Yep.
If you need something that speaks to people on social media, you need something that is shorter in content. But then what is that content composed of as well is very important. Is it character driven? Is it a talking head video? Is it a walk and talk? That is all determined in the sort of creative kickoff phase, or that phase where you just really narrow down what it is, what our goals are, and who our audience is.
Yeah. And I would say another huge thing is once you have that arsenal of content, how do you plan to deploy it, right? Because it's one thing to have a beautiful, brick and mortar restaurant in the middle of the desert, but if there's no foot traffic or there's no road that's going to direct people to that restaurant, nobody's going to sit down and the tables are going to be empty, right? But if you have a way to direct traffic and your distribution pipeline, then you can get those eyeballs on the content. And I think that's where you guys come in.
Yeah, and I think to your point on the marketing funnel at the beginning, or the video marketing funnel, I think it's it's a marketing funnel.
Sure.
But that mapping of content, to your point of what content are we building for which part of the funnel, I think is an important step as well. Because if you're looking at going back to that example of the restaurant, you're probably doing some brand awareness stuff, to just to drive awareness of the fact that, hey, there is this place here and it's cool. But then you might have lower down some remarketing, and then maybe people that have been there, some other stuff that really drives some fan engagement, or you're part of the club now that you've been here. So there's all these elements that kind of can play a part in, which is why you can get to X number of these videos, right? Where all of a sudden you've got a strategy now where your brand is going to be playing this strategy is going to be playing multiple roles within that funnel.
Yeah, you need a few touch points for sure, right? So if that's why it's essential that if you're producing your videos or someone are producing videos for you, that it's in sync with your digital marketing strategy or the agency that is doing your marketing.
Right.
Because having that roadmap initially, having that plan, and then having the cohesiveness later on. We have a paid budget behind this on this platform or that platform is very important.
Sure.
It's not a haphazard sort of approach,
Yeah. So why don't we go into I would say challenges maybe that you've had or that you guys have seen. I know you talked a bit about people being sensitive to their brand, and when they now see it, the video's produced, and oh wow, we didn't quite, because they're doing this for the first time, a lot of them, or at scale or more professionally.
Yeah.
What are the types of things that you see as kind of eye openers, or from clients that go through this?
It depends on the kind of business owner you're dealing with, whether it's an owner operator, whether it's someone who's a an executive, like a CMO or someone who's a marketing person. They have different goals, and sort of whether they're aligned with the rest of the organization or not is very important, because there's a lot of stakeholders. But when you go in and you give them creative that's a little bit outside the box, there's usually a lot of trepidation around like, hey, I don't know if we can do this. I don't know if we should try comedy. I don't know if we should, and that
poke fun or
exactly. And they're always very self-conscious of how, like in that competitive space, you find that they get too caught up thinking, what is my competition going to think of me, or what are my coworkers going to think of me, or our brand, as opposed to the audience.
Right. Yeah, and I would say, we like to offer variability in terms of the kind of content we're going to produce. So we can say, okay, here's the safe bet, here's the not so safe bet. Do you want to meet in the middle? This is what we would recommend. This is obviously safer. But I mean, a North Star for our writing is always, if it makes you or if it makes the client feel like a little bit uncomfortable, you're probably doing something right at the end of the day. And that's probably going to elicit a response that's going to be effective. And we've been able to test that, an A/B test, like, hey, here's the safe option, here's the not so safe option. And I would say 9 times out of 10, it's the not so safe option that actually becomes the signal through the noise in terms of what you're putting out there.
And by not so safe, like, we're not leaning into the culture wars or anything controversial.
Yeah, sure.
It's just comedy, just like something that is kind of outside of what you're used to. In terms of how your brand is perceived. So that in particular is a challenge sometimes, but you'll go shoot out an extra video, and sometimes you'll go back and show it to them. Hey, we shot this anyway. What do you think? Yeah. And a lot of the time, like, you know what, we love this.
Let's
run it. We want to try this out. Yeah. So sometimes there's a bit of persuasion there, and I think sometimes you have to bet on yourself, on your creative. Like, hey, we've booked a day, we've produced a day. We might as well shoot an extra spot and see how the client responds to it.
And it's about trust too, right? Like, ultimately it comes down to whether or not the client trusts you to take their brand and their mission into your own hands and, deliver a message for them or with them. And that plays into the creative kickoff process, all of the onboarding, working through the scripts and the, ideating all the creative, and then the trust is really important as well.
It's about, obviously rapport building and showing that you care about the brand, right? This is, you know, you're putting yourself in the client's shoes, and how would I try and sell this? How would I like to be perceived? So it's really important to, when you're creating content for someone or for whichever brand, that you really take it on as if it's your company.
I wonder if you, just on that line, I wonder if you can talk about who actually delivers that message. We see, again, the UGC, it's going to be someone from within the company who's doing that, which maybe is not always the right person to deliver. But you guys have a unique way of bringing in actors or comedians. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So the casting process is really important. Just finding the right face and matching that to the brand. Sometimes you'll have a conversation with a client and you'll realize that one of the stakeholders, one of the people on the meeting that represent the company, you're like, they will be great. They have something to offer. And I think that seeing them talk about their company sometimes, the passion, and sometimes, there's a lot of hidden gems, that people that can be really funny, but they just have never been in front of camera before. So you kind of work around that, or you sort of have a hybrid. We've had commercials where we've had the owner operator or someone involved with the business, and then actors or comedians as well. And, depending on how much control the client likes, sometimes we will involve them in the casting process, because the person in the ad is kind of the face of your brand. So if we've done all of our homework, we have our briefs ready, and we have our clients' trust, we're able to navigate that based on their personality type and based on the degree of, how much they want to be involved in their ads.
That's great. It's very interesting, because it's this brand face. It doesn't have to be you from your brand, but it's really important that brand value comes across in one way or the other.
Exactly. And it's really just about kind of, sometimes you'll get some self-tapes from actors, and the casting process, can take some time, because you really need to find the right fit and the right match. And that all has to do with the tone that we've established for the brand, just kind of doing the basic marketing homework, and then just finding the right fit. That right fit sometimes comes from within the company, sometimes it's from outside the company, but it is sort of a critical phase in, before we go out and shoot.
So just so that, maybe we could get into a bit of the process, because at the beginning we talked about you guys going over, what does a shoot look like? Why don't we talk about like what is a typical day when you guys are, I think in the past you've told me like you've got to select a venue, you've got to bring the cast, you got to the setup. So like talk a little bit about what is a day?
Sure. I mean, we come from like an indie film background, right? So having worked on feature films, TV pilots, music videos, and gaining that kind of boots on the ground raw production experience, we just really translated that into what we do at Taco. Mm-hmm. So if we're filming something, we're going to be filming it with the same rigor, pre-production, and equipment that you would use to make the Hollywood motion picture, essentially. Of course, that can scale up or down depending on the budget and depending on the client, but process is typically everything starts with the script. So identifying what we're filming and why, as Amr was saying.
That's the tortilla.
That's the tortilla, yeah. And then, your the meat and potatoes of it would be, who is the cast, where are we filming it? Location is always really important, obviously. And your fixings on top, your cilantro, your pickled onions, like your hot sauce. That's the sound design, the cinematography, the music composition if we're bringing in original music, things like that. So really it's the same way we would make a movie or a pilot. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, I think that differentiates, right? Because I think there's a gap. I would imagine that most companies out there don't have experience with that, commercial production grade process that would go on, right? So they're kind of in the dark, and then they see the user generated content or the basic animated explainers, and they're thinking, or they're really bad videos that have been done out there, right? And you think, oh, well, that's what we're talking about in terms of video marketing, right? And I think what you guys have done, it's really interesting, is you're bringing it down that higher level production quality into something that's now, and it's not just about that. I mean, there's the creative, there's the process, all the whole shooting match. Mm-hmm. But at that element, I think almost like, because I seen your decks and stuff, you show those behind the scene photos, right? And you're like, that's really cool. And I think a lot of people are look at that and they're like, whoa, there's a lot more going on here than just, an iPhone on a stick.
It's one thing that you asked about, like challenges with clients. Sometimes you do cast someone internally from within the company and they show up on set to film and it's like, we've got all the lights up and the gimbal set up and like, there's a robo
It's intimidating.
And they're like, holy shit. I don't know if I can swear, but they're like,
yeah, you can.
Like, what do I do? Like, how do I, with all the lights and things, it can be a bit intimidating.
A deer in the headlights sometimes, right?
Right, yeah, because now they're walking into this massive setup and they're like, holy moly, I thought this was just going to be like a selfie stick, and that's what we were doing.
And I will say, like, one thing we talk about a lot is this production triangle. It's like you can do it quickly, you can do really good quality, or you can spend. So it's this triangle between like time, money, and quality.
Sure.
And usually, like, if you push one in, like, it pops out the other way. So if you want to do something at a really high quality, typically, you either need to spend a lot of time prepping for it, or you need to be able to throw a big budget at it to get it done quickly. If you're more concerned about budget, then you probably have to spend a little more time on it up front in the pre-production phase to really like narrow everything down. So that triangle is important as well, that kind of production triangle, and time, quality, and budget.
It's really important to, once you build a relationship with someone, with a client who needs video assets, is to explain this process very clearly so that perception is changed.
Sure.
Like the conversation is changed. And, one of the ways that we've been able to, sort of bring the cost down for SMBs or make videos more affordable is once we've had, let's say we have a few different clients and we have, we know we're filming, let's say at an office space, there are some scenes at a home base, there are some scenes outdoors, and we find an overlap in cast and locations, then we're able to shoot multiple commercials for different clients on the same day.
Okay.
That way, once the fixed costs are covered, you're able to scale for clients and give them value. That's where the economies of scale kick in, because it is more affordable to get more work done on the same day, since you already have the location, you have your crew, you have your gear, everything's already been paid for. Then come back in 2 or 3 months and produce from scratch, because you're paying for that stuff all over again.
Right.
So it's we always, our approach is always to film and shoot as much as we can, even if the client won't necessarily need it right now, but it's a lot cheaper to come back and edit the video down the line than go and film it from scratch.
Yeah, and we're upfront about that with people that we work with, right? It's not like obviously Amr just said it here on the podcast. So it's like that's a part of our value, I think, is that we're able to, shoot various things on the same day as long as the location and the talent and the crew, fits. It's one of the ways that you can take really quality product and like bring the cost down to a place that's affordable for SMBs.
It's not, like it's one of the things that kind of sets us apart, but like we're just sharing value. Like it's not a secret sauce or anything, Sure. It's like basics of production. But that as well, like it's so important to be agile and lean and versatile in what you're producing. Kind of thinking on the spot. Like if you see a space and you have creatives there, to trust them and like, why don't we try something new? Yeah. And then we can share it later. If it doesn't work out, no problem. It just took us an extra half an hour. Yeah. If it worked out, the client likes it and we're able to test it, then that's a win.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. I think of like going back to some of the email comment that you made earlier, because we, as an agency, we're doing kind of two things broadly. We're doing the marketing automation and marketing operations data kind of related work, as well as the demand generation, running the ads on the various networks. And, I think because you brought it up at the beginning, performance, driving marketing performance. That's really our tagline now. We changed that a year and a half ago, because so many organizations are growth oriented. They want to get in front of new customers. They want to attempt to bring more people into their funnel. And I think we've talked about how this type of thing can make that happen. Just sending a basic email to them, might be still sending an email to them, but now there's a video in there. And guess what? People like to click on play buttons, right? Yeah. So that just changes the dynamic right there, or the success of that type of a campaign, of being able to bring more people in and say, I'm actually going to engage with Goose Digital now because, that was a cool video, and maybe I'll follow their content, right?
It's memorable.
It's memorable.
For sure, yeah.
But then the other thing, I think, for a lot of organizations who have maybe a different style of process, where they might be a B2B or a B2C, where they're selling kind of customers year over year, I think there's another huge opportunity to be producing content directed at that audience. It's like, we already have 100,000 people that buy from us every year. Let's tell them more about us. Let's create some interesting videos that make them want to come back and buy again next year. So we're not even talking about going out and grabbing new people, but we're trying to support the existing repeat buying that we have.
Yeah. Retention, right?
Retention.
You're nurturing what you have already.
Yeah. And
keeping them constantly engaged. There's nothing better than repeat business and retaining a client long term, and churning clients always sucks, So it is a fantastic way to keep them engaged with your brand. Especially, like if you have just kind of showing like what you have going on, what's new. And, it's something we're looking to explore with Goose Digital as well.
Yeah. Or thought leadership, like just talking about or poking fun at your industry. And I think so. I think we talk a lot about, well, I shouldn't say that. We focus quite a bit on customer marketing. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are programs that we run, particularly in the insurance industry, like running programs against the existing customer base. And I think that, I just think that goes such a long way for if you're a customer of a business and then you're receiving this high quality content back, about whatever. It doesn't even need to be something that is necessarily specific about a product that we're buying from you. It's just like, hey, you know what? That was a great way to tell us about snow tires. And it wasn't a basic email that said, don't forget your snow tires. It was something funny for 15 seconds that really got the point across, right?
It's just, and it's better if it's something real. It's just disarming, right? Like it's something that it doesn't have to be, you're not overselling. You're just sending something, like, hey, we don't take ourselves too seriously. Yeah. We want to share a couple of things with you, and that's it. And that usually creates a great rapport and goodwill. They stick around for a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure. Robin, what do you think on the data and insight side? I mean, we haven't talked about,
Well, we started off with data, so I always appreciate
I don't
that.
know. These guys said they're data driven, but I haven't heard a lot about
Well,
data yet,
I mean,
so
the sort of a little bit of our pre-podcast conversation, and then we think about you're starting with the data part. You're starting with the defining the audience and the profile. So that's starting with the data. You're starting with when you're looking at the marketing and the video funnel, and you're aligning your audience and your messaging to that, and then you're measuring. Right.
Really?
So that's the audience that's coming back. So, I remember when you were describing that we can look at the KPIs for video views and say, oh, you know what, we're starting to see in our awareness videos, we start to see a huge drop off after 4 seconds. Yeah. What does that tell us about our audience? Well, that's really valuable data, and that you then you utilize that as you do your next batch of videos. You're saying, okay, it's got to be super punchy. You've got to have that really funny line. It's got to happen before the 4 second mark. Yeah. So, and that's the value proposition of the data is you use it at the beginning to go ahead and target based on what you know, and then you capture additional data pieces along the way, and that's how you refine your message, your audience, your channel, all of those things.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think you mentioned something very important there, Robin, which is I believe that before you run the ads, there has to be a consensus on what we're measuring. What do we consider as a quantifiable success? Yeah. What are the conversions we're tracking? Are we tracking website signups? Are we tracking phone calls? Are we tracking downloads, e-commerce purchases? What do we consider? What metrics are considered as a success? Yeah. And setting the tracking codes or setting the conversion metrics beforehand is a crucial part to success of a campaign. But it's also very important to be realistic about those expectations. So like, what do we, let's talk about what a successful campaign means for an awareness, a batch of videos, or, lower funnel assets that are meant for retargeting, that are meant to drive sales or phone calls. Yeah. So just having that conversation beforehand, having that cohesion between the digital marketing team, strategists, whether they're in-house, whether they're an agency, with whomever's producing the video, is super important. And one of the other challenges, Mike, that we've run into is sometimes you see organizations, whether they're big software companies, big startups, whatever the company may be, of all sizes, sometimes their marketing efforts are extremely decentralized. So you have someone doing SEO, someone's doing a PPC campaign, someone's producing videos on the side, someone's running their socials. There's no overarching cohesive strategy. So it is important that, whomever is in charge of making those decisions, to have a centralized mandate where there's a rhyme or reason for everything that we're doing. It is methodical, and hence, when you go out and produce video assets to supplement that campaign, it all falls into place. We're not all pulling in different directions.
It all starts with the strategy. I think we've said that many times on our podcast, but it really is that's really the starting point about, why are we doing this? Who's the audience? What are our expectations? And what's involved? Who's involved? Very important.
And I was joking a bit on the data stuff, obviously, but video is so measurable, really. And that's what's cool about it, right? I mean, you might look at it, and I know you guys provide a lot of advice and guidance, especially when they're getting into it. Hey, this is what you need to look for, and it's like, hey, we might have 20% or 30% drop-offs, let's say, after a certain amount of viewing time. And it's like, you know what, maybe we're okay with that for a period of time because the audience is big enough and we're just going to keep going. Or maybe it's flipped to your point. It's like, actually the next set of videos we're doing is specifically to attack that drop off piece. We're not even getting to sales yet because we want to build that retargeting audience and get more people watching. So maybe there was a mismatch between the digital team that set up the audience within Facebook, right? Or how many times have we done these, right? And then it's like, well, maybe when we looked at the creative brief for the video, it was like, well, that's a little bit of a different audience here that's actually then being defined within Facebook. Like you've pulled in some other demos here that, stretch that audience a bit. No wonder it's lower than we thought, right? So to your point on just, there's so many elements here that you can kind of go off track if you don't have that central component. Obviously, us working together allows us to sort of pull those pieces because we often are the team that, is really leaned on for that. But you get a distributed marketing group that everybody's just trying to move as fast as they can, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden, you're just doing stuff and nobody's kind of drawing all those lines together.
Yeah, and we're constantly learning. Like you said, we you decide what you're going to test. Okay, so here's the audiences we're going after. Here's the type of content that we've created. What are the variables? What are we holding constant? What are we looking for? And then you learn something. Like you said, oh, well, maybe that drop off is okay because the numbers are extremely high and there's a lot of full views and the conversions are good. But, you know, maybe we attack that drop off in a different way with the retargeting ad. But at the end of the day, like once you start, as you go through the process, every quarter, you learn something new, and the content you create a year from now or 2 years from now is a lot more effective.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I don't know. We've been going for quite a while now. How long? 40 minutes? Wow.
Oh, wow.
So you just blasted by.
It flew by.
One of our longer
Nice.
ones.
Definitely
flew by.
Let's get the record. Let's hit the record.
Yeah. I don't know what the record is.
That might be it.
Yeah.
Close to,
Nice.
yeah. But there's so much to talk about, so
Well,
it's
let's
great.
It's fun,
crack
you know?
a couple of beers,
Lots
and
to
you
talk
know
about.
we're here all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do have beer here, that's for sure. Any closing thoughts? I guess where can people, you know, follow, get in touch with the if they want a taco or two,
Oh, man.
or 15.
Just
Yeah, you could just
Throw your email out there,
invertedtaco.com, or you know, look us up on.
Nice.
on-
Nobody
on
had
social-
that domain, eh? Good job.
No.
Good job.
No,
we have to battle for the top spot.
don't
on
look
the
it up
Google
on
ranking.
Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
That's
now
not what we're
everybody
going-
goes too.
That's not what we were going for.
Yeah. All right.
No, I would say, you know, if the modern day marketing, you know, arena is the phone, if that you take the billboard and you put that on your phone, just think as a company, like, what would you put on that billboard, you know, so that when you do reach out to us or a Goose and you do want to engage and you do want to create something, you know, have an idea about what that message is. It's super important, because otherwise you're just you're in the weeds for a little while figuring out what that thing is. So you think on it, because it's fun, you know, doing video is a lot of fun. Marketing can be super fun. But you want to make sure you have the right intention going in. I think Robin was saying, like, you know, ultimately it's about action and intention coming together. So having that key strategy piece at first and knowing exactly what you want to achieve and the message you want to put out there, it's so critical, because then you could put all the action in, but if the intention's off, you're not going to reach your goal. So make sure you understand what your intention is before you start to put in the action and before you start to invest in these things, because
100%.
you know.
Yeah.
That's great.
Roger that. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
So
Invite you
fun.
guys
Thank you for
back
having
again, I'm
us.
sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
An hour and a half next time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next time, tacos and beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we should have
Good
done.
combo.
Good combo.
Good stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
Thank you, guys.
What we doing now? What we doing now?